Hi, my name is James, and welcome to the Code With Me series of video tutorials. Before we jump right in, I wanted to have a little bit of an introduction about what this series is all about. We're going to be doing full stack development of a web app. Now, when we say full stack development, what we're talking about is the trend that's been over the last decade where it's expected that you know from all the way from the very back end to the front end, so all the way from the data storage to the services layer to the presentation, all the way up to HTML, jQuery, and so on, parts of the development stack. In small organizations or in startups, this is extremely important that you are at least familiar with it. Now, we don't expect people to be an expert and say what are the right types of indexes to tune in a particular SQL Server table based on your predicate that you're using and so on. Now, we'll bring in experts when we need to do that, but we need to be familiar with all those different steps of the process. So this is very, very important. In a startup environment, you want to be able to get something that's structurally sound, even if it's not perfect in each one of those stacks. And if you're starting to grow into a tech lead or an architecture role, this is very, very important because you're never going to be an expert in everything. When we do develop our full stack, when we do work on this full stack for our web app, we're going to go through some of those typical problems that you're going to run into and reasonably pragmatic ways to solve them for right now, and then we can talk about how we're going to iterate over it. We'll get something launched that maybe won't be perfect, but it'll be launched, right? Because as we know, better is the enemy of done. So we want to get something done, but we want to be done in a reasonable way, and we'll walk through some of those problems you're going to run into and how to solve them. And you'll see that process end to end. And initially you might look at it and say, well, that's you'll look at one slice of the video and say, well, that's not a great way to approach that, or I could do that better. And yeah, absolutely. But what we're trying to do is get it out there in a reasonable structure so that later we can go and we can improve on it. Who is this for? Anyone that's still learning how those pieces connect. So there's lots of great documentation and tutorials on things like, you want to learn about how Ninject works. Great. There's a great website that explains that. Or you know that you should be using nlog. Great. Or you want to do something with a micro RM. And what's that? Well, we'll get into that a little bit later. There's lots of great wikis and tutorials, but unless you've been on a team, an experienced team that's done this before, you might not know how you put all those pieces together. Like how should I put in my security system to be secure, both at the presentation and at the services level? So we'll help kind of connect the dots on those pieces of technology. If you're switching from ASP.NET Web Forms to MVC, maybe you know how these should be put together, but you haven't seen it done yet in MVC. We'll talk through that because this will be very focused on MVC technology. If you're at an organization that is launching a new product, so that maybe you don't have users yet, or you're doing something on the side where you want to get something launched because maybe you want to do a startup, or you're in a startup right now and Microsoft is your technology. If you want to start with a small application and you don't want to over-engineer it, but you want to get it launched and be in a position where you can scale it. And when I say scale it to a pretty decent size, we're talking tens of millions of page views a day. This approach will help you do it. How do I know that? I'm running sites right now that are doing that type of volume using this approach, and I've done this approach several times. The format of the videos. This will be the only video that's purely PowerPoint. The rest of them, we're going to dive into code. We might do a little bit of PowerPoint when we get into some of the architectural side, but there'll be screencasts of actual coding. So you can code along with me, so we can do some pure coding if you want, or you can kind of see what I'm doing and skip ahead. That's fine too. I'm going to structure them in 10 to 20 minute video bites. So we'll focus on a particular topic, and in the initial couple will probably just be setup. So we'll kind of go through, okay, here's how we're going to structure it. Here's how we can use NuGet efficiently to pull in these packages, and then we'll dive into specific domains. So we'll talk about how we're going to approach our authentication. The actual application that we're going to build will probably be more of like a kitchen sink type of application, where it's just going to give you examples of what you could do. It's dependent really on what you're trying to launch. So I'm not going to try to guess at what you're doing, but show you some of the typical things that you're going to run into. I'm going to try to get these launched every 1 to 2 weeks. Might be able to do the initial ones will probably go very quickly, so hopefully I'll get a few up very quickly. And then based on the feedback, maybe if you have a particular topic you want to see addressed, how do we approach unit testing a controller? We could do a series on that. The types of technologies, since we're doing full stack, there's going to be a lot of different technologies, and I just want to throw an example of those that we're going to go through. And finally, I'm going to keep this short. I just wanted to say special thanks to a couple of people, Scott Hanselman, Brent Ozar, Vi Hart, and Khan Academy, some in the technology, some in the education, because I realized, I've been doing this for 20 years, and I give lots of talks in my role to developers that work with me on how I approach development and getting them all aligned with what we're trying to do. And I realized through some of these works that other people have been doing that I could easily just sort of like Sal did with Khan Academy, just post this on YouTube. Just take a few minutes of my time to capture, how I know, and hopefully, you'll find this of interest. You can follow me on Twitter at jbright, also online at 23bits.com. We are right now working on another project, and we just got accepted into an accelerator program in the PSLU, so you'll see some of our real work being launched on the web in the next couple of months as well. Thank you, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.